nearest exit and follow the directions of the lighted exit signs to exit the building. We ask that you please turn off all wireless and cellular devices. Also, please refrain from exiting and entering the auditorium during the performance. If you do find it necessary to exit or enter the auditorium during the performance, please only do so during applause. Thank you for your cooperation and enjoy this evening's performance.
At Youngstown State University, your future is waiting for you, where value is not only defined by our cost, but in degrees and services. It's a place to live and a place to learn, where friendships are forged and professional connections build the foundation of your career. A place where education is everything and experience matters. We are Youngstown State University, and we are waiting for you.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Wilkinson, the Dean of Williamson College of Business Administration. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this Paul J. and Marguerite K. Thomas colloquium on free enterprise featuring John Hope Bryant. Before we begin, I would like to thank the Thomas family for supporting this wonderful series. Representing the family are Gwen and Tom Thompson. With us tonight, representing community businesses and nonprofits, are staff and board members from Habitat for Humanity, Compass Family and Community Services, the Ursuline Sisters Mission, and the Youngstown Business Incubator. All three of these organizations provide resources, services, and support to our community to help make it thrive. Also in the audience are students from YSU Honors College. Our friends from Park Vista of Youngstown are once again in the audience supporting our lecture series. Thank you to all of you. Facilitating the Q&A session of our program tonight are faculty and students from the YSU Department of Communication. Also, please note that our next speaker in the Thomas Colloquium series is Indra Nooyi, former CEO of Pepsi. She will be here March the 23rd, 2023, so mark your calendars. Now, about our speaker. And I want to make a note right now that you may want to take out a piece of paper and a pen because he's going to say something that you're going to go, I need to write that down. So just letting you know. Referred to as the conscience of capitalism by CEOs of Delta Airlines, Walmart, and First Republic Bank, John Hope Bryant is an American entrepreneur, author, philanthropist, and prominent thought leader on financial inclusion, economic empowerment, and financial dignity. Mr. Bryant is the founder, chairman, and CEO of Operation Hope Incorporated, the largest nonprofit, best-in-class provider of financial literacy and economic empowerment service in the United States for youth and adults. He is also the founder, chairman, and CEO of Bryant Group Ventures and founder and principal of the Promise Homes Company, which is the largest minority-controlled owner of single-family rental homes in the United States. 5 former U.S. presidents have recognized his work, and he has served as an advisor to 3 sitting U.S. presidents from both political parties. He is responsible for financial literacy becoming the policy of the United States federal government. John Hope Bryant has received hundreds of awards and citations for his work, including Oprah Winfrey's Use Your Life Award and the John Sherman Award for Excellence in Financial Education from the US Treasury. Mr. Bryant is the author of best-selling books, Up From Nothing, The Untold Story of How We All Succeed, The Memo, 5 Rules for Your Economic Liberation, How the Poor Can Save Capitalism, Rebuilding the Path to the Middle Class, and Love Leadership. Please welcome John Hope Bryant.
Good evening. I say that with enthusiasm because that's the way you got to believe in your city. If you don't believe it, nobody else will. I want to, first of all, thank the dean and Jackie and everybody involved with this program. I want to thank Gwen and Tom, who helped to sponsor it. The Seals family. Mrs. Seals is one of the Board of Trustees members, and her and her husband are deeply involved philanthropists here in town. I had a chance to meet them and others tonight. And Dr. and Mrs. York, who are heroes and sheroes in your city, who I am honored to know and call friends. And their son, Jed York, is on my board of directors, so he's paying it forward and continuing their great legacy. Is Mrs. York, Dr. York here? Where are they? Please stand up. Please stand up. Stand up. Give them some love. They are hometown heroes and sheroes. Great, great people. So what if I told you, and the head of the Youngstown Foundation is here, so many heroes and sheroes I've met, including young aspiring leaders of the world, starting right here in your city, greatness sitting right underneath your feet. One of the things that concerns me, though, is two people I met started out by questioning themselves, questioning their own city, as if your best years are behind you. The Bible says, where there is no vision, the people perish. You've got to believe. Nothing good comes easy. Everything that you love is a pain in the rear end. Am I talking to myself? Or is this real talk? You love your husband or your wife? Twice a year you want a divorce. You don't mean it, literally, but they drive you a little nuts. You love your children. You want to throttle them every Tuesday. The Yorks would love to quit. They can't. It's their own business. Whatever you love, it's going to drive you a little nuts. Love is work. Non-love is laziness. Anti-love is evil. Evil exists, but it's very rare. Most people are just lazy. Intellectually lazy, spiritually lazy, financially lazy, emotionally lazy. I didn't say that. They just don't want to do the work. But love is work. That's what it is. And there is no shortcut. And you cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. It is a scientific fact. Nothing comes without work, and you cannot grow without legitimate suffering. What would you say? We've got some good news for you. I love math because it doesn't have an opinion. I said that earlier with some young people I spoke to earlier. I'm going to give you some data in a second, which I think is going to blow your mind about your city. And hopefully it's going to also inspire you and give you a bit of a surprise. But what would you say if I told you that we're sitting in a moment in history? Right now. But history does not feel historic when you're sitting in it. It just feels like another day. But that does not mean that the moment was not, in fact, historic. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. lived in Atlanta for 13 years during the Civil Rights Movement. He went to parent-teacher night. He went to his kids' schools. He had dinner at the house. He went to boring staff meetings. Not every day was I have a dream. In fact, I have a dream was not even I have a dream. Do you know he gave that speech over 100 times? Just that one speech. He traveled 2,600 speeches, 6 million air miles, 13 years. Back when air travel was not very fast. But let's just deal with this one speech, over 100 times. And you know it's true because when you go to the March on Washington, which by the way, no one wanted him to speak at, I'll get to that in a moment. He's giving the speech and Mahalia Jackson in the middle of the speech says, "Tell him about the dream, Martin." Translation, I'm tired of listening to this lousy, raggedy speech. Get to the good part. Yeah. Leave the script and riff, is what she was saying. No one wanted him to speak on the March on Washington. We give this credit as if it was an experience all about him. Not true. March on Washington actually started in the 40s. It was A. Philip Randolph, the Pullman porters, who pressured the President of the United States at that time to integrate the military. A. Philip Randolph is like a lost hero that doesn't get him and Dr. Dorothy Height, who I had the honor of knowing, an incredible woman. A. Philip Randolph said, if you don't integrate the military, Mr. President, I'm going to march on Washington. So the president buckled, and that's how the military was integrated with blacks. He gets no credit for it. And every few years, somebody would threaten, mostly Ed Philip Randolph, by the way, to do another march. It was never done because the president would always buckle to a reasonable demand. But for whatever reason, John F. Kennedy said, go ahead and march. He really didn't think it was going to be a big deal. So it was A. Philip Randolph and the traditional civil rights leaders who marched on Washington for jobs and freedom, by the way. I'm here to cash a check, march insufficient funds. You remember that phrase? But the traditional leaders, not including A. Philip Randolph, by the way, the traditional civil rights leaders, I'm not going to name names because you know who they are, they were jealous of Dr. King. Just say it where it is. They were jealous, they were envious. They thought he got too much attention. And so they tried to discourage him speaking, and Dr. King was so gracious, he said, no problem. And 3 hours of speechifying, Dr. Dorothy Height said to the organizers, look, the young people listen to Dr. King. Just give him 8 minutes. What can he possibly do in 8 minutes? As you well know now, no one remembers anything else. But my point of that story is, that wasn't easy. None of it was easy. It was dang hard, and it was embarrassing, and it was humiliating, and it was disrespectful to him, but still he rose, stepping over mess and not in it. Understanding it wasn't about the credit, it was about the work. And he never gave up. Quincy Jones tells me it takes 20 years to change a culture. I'd argue in the last 20 years we've made dumb sexy. We've dumbed down and celebrated it. And I'm here at this university to say it is time to make smart sexy again. And I see reasons for hope. I see it happening. Back to the challenge. You're sitting in a moment of history. Let me frame it for you. The first Reconstruction was 1858 to about 1868. It was marked by a call for freedom. You with me so far? I'll come back to this one. The second Reconstruction was about 1958 to 1968, marked by Dr. King's assassination. By the way, the first Reconstruction was unfortunately marred and marked by Abraham Lincoln's assassination. And Lincoln and King were assassinated on the same month, April 4th and 8th. The second Reconstruction was about access. I say we're sitting in the third Reconstruction right now. 2020 to 2030, it's about opportunity. The color's not black or white. It's not red or blue. I don't care what your TV says. It's green. It's always been green. What we do now for the next 8 years will define the next 100. Everything matters. About right now, somebody's thinking, this guy's nuts. That's true, by the way. You gotta be crazy to believe you can change the world. This guy's nuts. What does he mean? What can we do? Doesn't he see the TV set? Doesn't he see what's going on? Nobody changes in good times. Why would you? You only change in bad times. And you think we have it tough? The mid-1960s saw the murder of Malcolm X and others, and in 1 year, President of the United States of America, and in 1 year you had Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy, 68. That's not happening today. I'm just contextualizing pain for you. We think because we're in it right now, this is the worst it's ever been. It's just not. It's a problem, but it's not the worst it's ever been. In fact, there's more opportunity now than we have ever seen in our entire lives. But we've got to make it so. Back to the story. Let me tell you how we got here. I'm going to destroy some myths, and then I'm going to introduce you to your city in a different way. We okay? I'm sorry, I'm from the black church. I'm used to seek and respond. We okay? Okay, all right. By the way, I don't know if you like the suit, but it's made by an Operation Hope success story. We literally put him in business. He's doing $1.5 million a year now, has employees, raising his children, paying his taxes, paying it forward, gave him a $35,000 loan, a little bit of financial literacy, a little bit of financial coaching, $1.5 million a year. That's what I call paying it forward. It's a James Brown version of affirmative action. Open the door, I'll get it myself. So let me now break up some myths. White is a myth. Let me break up another myth before that. Racism is really stupid. I mean, like scientifically stupid, not like in my opinion. Why are black people dark? Because Africa's hot. I'm not kidding. Like the sun is direct in sub-Saharan Africa. God knew what he was doing. You don't hear black people talking about skin cancer. You don't hear black Africans talking about skin cancer because God knew what he was doing. He knew that the sun was direct in sub-Saharan Africa, and he arranged for the pigmentation of that skin to absorb heat rays. Why is black hair in Africa kinky? Because the softest part of your body is over your brain. So he created hair that had a absorption rate to be able to absorb the heat rays and dispense the heat before it cooked your brain. It's not my opinion. Like, this is literally true. Why is the nose wide for black Africans? Because it's hot. And the nose serves as a natural air conditioner to cool the air before it goes to the one place that if hot air goes, it will kill you, your lungs. Why are black people's lips big? I don't know, but everybody wants them. So, oh, you're awake. You're in sub-Saharan Africa and you go north on the African continent. By the way, it's 54, 55 countries, depending on whether you recognize certain countries on the African continent. And by the way, if you look at North America and South America, and you look at Africa and Europe, and you take the water out of the middle, guess what happens? Click. It was once one, it broke away. We were once one, we broke away. Human beings, mankind created separation. We're the ones who said this is a country and this is a city, and we did this to us. Stay with me. Tell me if anything I'm saying is irrational. This is just a radical movement of common sense. You go far on you're up the north, go up to northern, on the northern plain in Africa, the sun is less direct. What happens in Morocco? How do people look at Morocco? Olive skin. Why? The sun is less direct. What happens to the hair? What happens to those kinks, the kinky of the hair? It unfolds. The hair is curly in Morocco. Then you have a body of water. It's called the Mediterranean. You follow me? You jump over the Mediterranean, you have southern Europe. The Spanish coast, the French coast, etc. How do people look? No, wait a minute. Slow it down. How do people look on the coast of Europe? Southern Italians. French along the coast. Don't trust me, go home, Google search it. It's olive skin and curls. As you get further up in Europe, you look sort of like this gentleman here. Some people would say he's white, but if he goes to Norway, they might call him my brother because he actually has a tan. You go to Norway, which is northern Europe, white is like you go to Norway with my friend the Crown Prince is, white is almost like that because it's cold and the temperature is such that it rewards skin that can absorb cold weather. How does a nose in northern Norway? Narrow. Why? To heat the air before it goes into your lungs. What happens to the hair? What's the hair like in Norway? It's long and stringy to cover your ears, because if your ears get cold, you're toast. I was in Norway for a speech, and I showed up at the airport. What are you here for? Here to see the Crown Prince. We're going to ask you one more time. Where are you staying? The Crown Prince's residence? Okay, over to this room, sir. So anyway, they got me out of jail. And the driver, escort, security from the Crown Prince's office, oh, you're so nice, we're so honored. This is December now. We're so honored to have you here, it's so fantastic. You know, we like having you. We want you to go scuba diving with us tomorrow. No! It's cold! It was natural for her. It's how our body's oriented. Racism's stupid. 99.9+% of all human DNA is precisely the same. Don't trust me, do your own research. We argue over 1/4 of 1% that's different. Let me now bring this to this pretty aggressive statement I made that white was made up. You remember that? The word white didn't exist. Let me start this in a dramatic way. How old is the world? Let me help you. 5 billion years old. Organism life, 4 billion years. Human life, 200 million years old. Modern human life, a few 100,000 years old. North American life, 60,000 years old. You start to get the picture, right? The story we know, Jesus, etc., a couple thousand years old. But the word white was created in 1619. Didn't exist as relates to people. It was made up. You want to hear the story? This is how silly we are. 20 indentured servants come in to Jamestown, Virginia. 16 are black, 4 are white. 4 come in from Britain, poor whites, who came in as indentured servants. They get along. They become friends. They did not like how they were being treated by the overseer and ran away together, blacks and whites. They were caught, and the overseer, the plantation owner, said, "We got a problem. They're getting along." This is a quote. "We can have a race riot. We cannot have a class riot because we're the class." Come over here. You ran away. We're going to have to do something. We're going to give you 2 more years. Now, never do this again. You guys ran away. We're going to give you life. Okay, the black people. Okay. You're white like us. You're in charge of it. That's how it started. What didn't happen was the person should have said, critical thinking. I've gone to gone to a great university. I've gone to Youngstown University. I'm smart. I'm brilliant. I've graduated from the business school. The dean of Youngstown is here somewhere. She introduced me. I'm in this university. I'm smart. I'm going to ask a critical question. I'm not wealthy like you. I don't have titles like you. I don't have land like you. So why am I white like you? But that question was never asked. They just said yes. That's how we got here. Poor whites and poor blacks for 40 years fighting over silly stuff when this was all about money. Now, I'm not going to take you through 40 years of history. You know a lot of this, but I'm going to bring this really quickly. I'm going to do 40 years in 4 minutes. Is that okay? The largest reverse transfer of wealth in U.S. history was slavery. That's not an opinion. That's not an emotional decision. Don't feel guilt about it. By the way, there were black slave traders. Anybody wants to feel less uncomfortable? There were Arab slave traders. There were black slave traders in Africa. How do you think that people got from the coast? The white folks didn't just walk into Africa and say, "Hey, come over here." You can laugh, by the way. It's okay. Relax. Everybody engaged in this horrible enterprise. It's just that America made it into a business. That's the problem. They grew from 4 million to 40 million. I mean, it was ridiculous, from 400,000 to 4 million. And it was free labor, and you couldn't create capital because you were capital. And it was a deal you couldn't really turn down if you were a plantation owner, so you went to war to maintain your station in life. The richest city in the world in 1841 was Natchez, Mississippi. In the world. Mississippi was the wealthiest state in the world. The largest asset were black slaves, worth double railroads in 1840s. The first millionaire in 1840, 1850 was in New York City through trading cotton, financing cotton, which of course you know came from slavery. I'm just giving you economic facts. There's nothing emotional about any of this except this. 1865, we received the first Reconstruction, which was freedom. We're free. Then you hear about this 40 acres and a mule. You familiar with the story? Yes? So January 1865, Abraham Lincoln sent Secretary of War Stanton and General Sherman to Savannah, Georgia, and met with 20 ministers. What do you want after you're free? Do they want a welfare program? No, I want land. I want to do for myself. So they said, fine, we're going to Field Action 15, we're going to give you 400 acres, 400,000 acres for all Union soldiers who fought in the war, 40 acres each. That land was horrible. This was an agricultural age. It's down the coast from North Carolina all the way to what we call Miami, 30 miles in from the beach. But we didn't argue about it, we didn't complain about it, we were doing so much with so little for so long, we almost do anything with nothing. We worked that land so hard, they said, my God, they're so industrious, give them a mule. Was that a handout or a hand up? It was a hand up. It was a reward for industry. A mule that day was like saying a tractor. So it was land, and it was machinery, and now you needed a bank. So January 1865 came the land. February 1865, the next month, came the mule. March 3rd, you cannot make this up, 1865, Abraham Lincoln signed the Freedmen's Bureau Act, which created the Freedmen's Bank, chartered to teach freed slaves about money. The mission was teach about money, financial literacy, circa 1865, domicile your savings, and give you access to capital. And Lincoln was killed April 1865, the next month. Booth said you will never make your next speech. Here's my point. I think I covered this in the memo of the book that is out now. My last book is Up From Nothing, but here's the point. It's not like black folks got the memo on free enterprise economics and ownership and screwed it up. We just never got the memo. So it's actually pretty miraculous that we've done as well as we have done with no manual on the thing that drives the largest economy on the planet, which is free enterprise, economics, ownership, wealth creation, and capitalism. It's what we don't know that we don't know that's killing us, but we think we know. Where have we succeeded? Where the rules are published and the playing field is level. Help me out. Professional sports, politics, the arts. Are you with me? Again, if I say something irrational, just stop me. To me, it's just common sense. That's it. Here's what I got to tell you. You cannot employ 40 million people with 3,000 rappers, 3,000 professional athletes who have a 3-year career, and however many politicians are elected on a 2 or 4 year cycle. And you shouldn't be building wealth that way anyway. None of those things create wealth at scale. But that's the business plan of Black America. And just so you don't think that I'm getting racial here, there are 3 groups left behind of 200 groups in America who make up this country. Poor whites, Native American Indians, and African Americans. Now, I didn't say African Caribbeans, I didn't say African Ghanaians, I didn't say African Nigerians. Do you know there's no African Nigerian ghettos in America? Oh, this stuff's funny to me. I don't know what, it's just ironic to, these are mind twisters. There are no Afro-Caribbean ghettos in America. There's only African American ghettos in America. Do you know that the biggest group dying in this country? Faster than anybody else. High school educated white men dropping through opioid addiction and depression because they have the same problem that my black friends do. I want you to put up the slide. I'm about to introduce you or reintroduce you to your great city. If you can put up the slide, there we go. Let me introduce you or reintroduce you to Youngstown. I love data. I love math because it does not have an opinion, as I said earlier. This is your city through data. Let me break it down for you. You know where 44507 is? Zip code? So, I don't know this neighborhood. I've never been there. But based on that credit score, let me tell you what I see. A check casher, next to a payday loan lender, next to a rent-to-own store, next to a title lender, next to a liquor store, next to a pawn shop, and maybe a church down the street trying to make you feel better once a week so you don't go crazy. Yes or no? I've never been there. Poland, feels like I'm in another country. Poland. Zip code 44514. Credit score is 736. Let me see if I can get this right. We would call it Whole Foods, whatever nice grocery store chain you have, Starbucks, parks, two-parent households, small businesses, banks. I've never been there. I'm just talking to you. Correct me when I'm wrong. How far away are these zip codes? 20 minutes? 10 minutes? 5 minutes? You can't make this up. Let me walk you through this data. We are the only, I get so excited about this. Congratulations. You're the first time I've given a speech and unveiled this data in public. I was on CNBC Squawk Box last week and I unveiled it on TV. I talked about Chicago, but this is the first time that I'm telling you the whole story of America through a credit score and a zip code. We have mapped the entire country at Operation Hope by zip code, by credit score. I know it sounds silly, but we have got this nailed. It's not racial, it's not political, it's not biased. It doesn't matter whether you're urban or you're rural. Let me tell you something else. Poor white in Ohio, rural, 500 credit score, here's what you see there. Check casher, next to a payday loan lender, next to a rent-to-own store, next to a title lender, next to a liquor store, next to a pawn shop, and a church is more quiet than the black church. If I got somebody to laugh. Down the street trying to make you feel a little bit better so you don't go completely cray-cray. All the church is an unlicensed psychologist. Because we don't want to go to a shrink to admit we're crazy, but half of this country is depressed today. Let me pick another data point I find fascinating. Crime rates per 1,000. In 44514, it's 5.6 crimes per 1,000 residents. In Erie, I'll do Poland plus Erie. In Erie, it's 50. 10x, 5 minutes away. Violent crimes per 1,000, 0.09%, almost negligible in Poland. In Erie, it's basically 10%, or 10 per 1,000. By the way, let me help you out here, give you one point of hope. In Chicago, that's 95. That's actually one of the lowest numbers I've seen for an inner city of violent crimes per 1,000. So you actually have some hope here that you are not giving yourself credit for. Graduation rates, this is pretty consistent. Poland, 80.4%, typically it's more like 95% for graduation rates for high school, but the Erie number is completely consistent, 63%. How do you aspire, unless you're going to become an entrepreneur or small business owner, how do you succeed in a technology-centric, knowledge-centric economy if you haven't finished high school? Life expectancy. 77%, call it 80 years old in Poland. In Erie, 68 years old. You live 12 years less because you live in a poor neighborhood. Here's your opportunity, one of many pieces of opportunity. Poland average home value, $130,000. Erie, $19,000. That's the average home value. What do we have in America today? An affordable housing crisis. What do you have in Erie? Affordable housing. I mean, am I talking to myself? People migrate in large part because of economics. Even the top number is impressive. $130,000 in a 700 credit score neighborhood is also something your Chamber of Commerce and your tourism board should be marketing until the hills come home. No, this is in Poland. $130,000. That's lower than the national average of $428,000 by $300,000. You're not even seeing your own value in your own community. But the larger point I'm trying to make here is, if you move credit scores from 100 points from 590 to 690, you change everything. Don't do anything else. Because when you're trying to fight crime, you're attacking the symptoms, not the problem. If you move the credit score, it's hitting the trending indicators of hope, well-being, faith, confidence, trust, belief, which then triggers self-esteem, which triggers access to capital. Do you know that there are 40 million black people in America, but the average credit score for black people are 620 or less? I'm going to slow that down and do it again. 40 million African Americans in this country, the average credit score for half of black folks is 620 or less. Let me make this very clear. Take racism out of it. Take bias out of it. Take everything you've been told is a problem out of it for a minute. You can't get a decent mortgage at a good interest rate below 680. You can't get a small business loan below 700 because it's considered risky credit. That means that 2/3 of African Americans go to church every Sunday, pay their taxes, go to this great university, come to Youngstown, they go to receptions, they look great, they dress beautifully, they're able-bodied, whatever, can't start a business. No one's going to give you a loan. And it has nothing to do with race. But no one's told you what I just told you. What did I tell you earlier was the wealthiest state in America? In 1840? Mississippi. What's the poorest state in America today? It also has the lowest credit score of any state in America. It's the most unbanked state in America. They've lost their storyline. We'll get to that in the Q&A. The young lady asked what caused that. We'll get to that in a moment. Actually, let me get to it now. The Bible says that a house divided cannot stand. Everybody wants to be an American but Americans. Let me tell you something. I said we're seeing a moment in history. We're also at war. Let me rephrase that. There are people in countries at war with us. There are countries, I won't name China, that want your way of life. They want to be us. Russia too. There's a whole bunch of countries that would like to be us. But they can't win in a fair fight. They're cheating at capitalism. They're stealing our intellectual property rights. But none of that worked. Think about this, 8 billion plus people in the world. There's only 350 Americans, but we're the largest economy on the planet, $22 trillion GDP, and no matter what happens, we just shrug it off and punch right through it. We are amazing with all of our problems. We're still the greatest experiment on the planet. would not have existed anyplace else. Not in Russia, not in Germany, not in France, not in Japan. My story of up from nothing would not have existed anyplace else except here. With all of our problems, the fact that my grandfather was a slave, my great-grandmother was a slave, my grandfather was a sharecropper. I understand my history. I understand racism. And in spite of that, I'm still worth a lot of money. None of your business. So let me answer your question. How did we get here? Stupidity. I love Memphis. I think it's a great city, great barbecue. If you go to Memphis today and take a picture and compare it to a picture from 1968 when Dr. King was assassinated at the airport, it looks exactly the same. No, it's worse than an investment. They fought over who's going to go to a water fountain, white or black. Birmingham is a great American city, named after Birmingham, England. Should have been Atlanta. Should have had our airport, should have had our industrial base, should have had the growth, but they also fought over race. Atlanta decided to fight, as an example, over the money. Who got the contract? Not what race you were. What's the most diverse country in the world? The United States of America. Every race of people within our borders. What's the biggest economy in the world? Not a trick question. United States of America. What's the two most diverse states within the United States of America? California and New York. What's the two most economically prosperous, high credit score states in America? California and New York. You can't make this up. What's the largest economy in the American South? I heard it over here. Atlanta. Almost $400 billion a year. It's the biggest in the American South. Don't trust me, just pull it up. It's easy to pull up. It's the 10th largest economy in the whole country. Atlanta. Here, get this. And it's the only international city in the South. It's the busiest airport in the world. In the world. Hold on. You take the city, not Georgia, Atlanta. Take Atlanta, put the state of Mississippi, the state of Alabama, and the state of West Virginia inside of Atlanta together and still have room economically. Because and by the way, what's the most diverse place in the South? Atlanta. You want to find companies that are successful, profitable? Find a company that's diverse and inclusive. I'm not giving you a moral speech. I'm telling you the business plan that works. You've got all these elements of success right here in Youngstown. You just need to reinvent yourself. You need to reimagine yourself for a new generation. The industrial base, the Industrial Revolution is gone. You've got to now look to the future. Your best capital is your human capital. I've met many tonight. Entrepreneurs and business people. There's a young man right here that owns, I believe, don't say it, is it a trucking company? A moving company. See, I was listening to you. Some banker should be paying attention to him. Do you know that the average ownership rate for blacks for homes across the country is 41%? How do you build wealth in this country? Home ownership. The average home ownership rate for whites, 74%. That delta of 30% is not only a social justice issue, it's an economic opportunity. Because if you rent, it costs just as much to rent as it does to own. Sometimes more. But where does property taxes come from? Home ownership. If you own a home, you hire a landscaper, you hire a painter, you pay utilities, you make investments in your area, you cut your grass because nobody washes the rental car. I'm giving you guys good stuff. It's going right over your heads. Nobody washes rental cars. Think about it. You went in a rental car, you drove it for 2 weeks, it changed color, and you delivered it back to its owner. Yes or no? The best police officer you can have is an owner. I'm not talking about sophisticated stuff here. This is basics. That's basic. Move the credit score. This is something, I can't solve racism. I can't make you like me. I don't really care if you like me. It's okay if you don't like me, I like me. I'm gonna tell you my story in a minute, this will make sense why I just said that. But I don't care if you, I can't change if you like me. I can't change if you like this African American gentleman here, or whether you're biased toward a woman or Muslims. I can't change any of that. I can change your credit score. Sorry, you can change your credit score. Operation Hope is moving credit scores 54 points in 6 months, 120 points in 24 months. Nothing changes your life more than God or love than moving your credit score 120 points. Do you know there's never been a riot in a 700 credit score community in all of America's history? I'm joking, but I'm serious. 700 credit score communities don't riot, they go shopping. You know where all the riots are? 500 credit score neighborhoods. All of them. Where are the crime? Where's the drug abuse? Where's the depression? Where are the drug dealers? Where are the crime? It's concentrated in low economic activity, high financial illiteracy neighborhoods. This is why I say financial literacy is a civil rights issue of this generation. This is as important as the right to vote. This is everything today. Because if you don't know better, you can't do better. So now let me pivot to all of us. Somebody's got to tell me when I'm out of time, but I'm getting too excited. I'm almost out of time. 10 minutes? Are you guys bored with me yet? Can I talk for 5 minutes? No. See, you never want to be the old guy in the club. So before you guys kick me out, I'm going to leave. But we want some time for some Q&A before you have to go. But there's a few things I just want to get in. We covered 400 years of history in 40 minutes. We talked about the economic realities, the advantage of this country. I'm going to now pivot to talk about all of us. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I think this relates to the least of these God's children, and then I'm going to give you an assignment. $64% of all Americans don't have $400 for an unplanned event. In the largest economy on the planet. 64%. $400. Please let that sink in. I didn't say black people or Latinos or poor people. Somebody you know who's asking you for a loan. Think about it. 70% of this country lives from paycheck to paycheck. 70. Are you listening to me? You hear this is stunning statistics. The largest economy on the planet living from paycheck. Hold on. A third of everybody making $250,000 a year today is living from paycheck to paycheck. $250,000 a year. We're at risk. That's something we can solve. Number one cause of divorce. Number one cause of domestic abuse. Number one reason why women with children stay with abusive men. Number one cause for heart attacks, stress. Number one cause for stress. Do poor white people riot? Interesting. I told you we go to church differently, didn't I? I said earlier we go to church differently. I mentioned that. Black people go to church and we're loud. My poor white friends go to church and they're more quiet. But they still go to church. Okay, hold on for it. No, stay with it. Stay. She's a participatory speech. We got a relationship. So black folks, we're emotional, we're passionate, we have energy. So when we dust up, you hear about it. So when we're upset, we riot, like we break windows and, it's a visual thing. What if I told you that for the last 6 years, my poor white friends have been rioting at the ballot box? They finally found a spokesman. They're frustrated. Economically, aspirationally frustrated. We're all in this mess together. But you can take no pleasure from the fact there's a hole in my end of our boat. We're all in this thing together. I'm going to go back to the war analogy, then I'm going to pivot. I mentioned something very provocative, that the world's at war. It's not a physical war. No one can afford bombs and bullets right now, or nuclear bombs, because it destroys the economics. China owns our treasury bills, as an example. They can't afford to go to real war with us. They just want us to be serfs. They want us to be subservient. They want us to buy all their stuff. But make no mistake about it, China wants to be leader of the world. Make no mistake about it. We don't have time to get into the details, but I can give you data that would make your eyes water. Where do you think your Facebook got all this stuff in the last 6 to 8 years that made you angry? That made you turn against your brother? That made you think about our differences that are uninteresting versus our similarities, which are amazing? That just popped up on everybody's feed 6 years ago. It was funded. Don't trust me, do your own research. It was funded by China and Russia, who's trying to get us to hate each other. Are you hearing me? I'm going to say something else provocative. Now I have to have a little trust with you. For those of you listening to this, and you go home, you talk to somebody, and they go, well, this guy just wants black people this, black people that. Let me say this. There's not enough college-educated white men to grow the economy for the next 40 years. It's demographics. That's not an opinion. We actually need everybody. Let's assume the racist says some foul name to me and they say they don't like me. Okay. But if we have an initiative called 1 Million Black Business Initiative, which is funded by Shopify, $130 million over 10 years to create 1 million black businesses. I've already created 270,000 black businesses, by the way, in the last 2 years. We're on track to achieve and fulfill this goal. If we create these businesses and grow the economy, even my white racist friends win. I'll say that one more time. If I create black businesses that grows the GDP of the country and the boats rise, all boats rise. You follow that? Citigroup report, 2001, proved. Pull it up, don't trust me. On all this, do your own research. Citigroup, you're going to do a lot of research and go home tonight. Citigroup report, discrimination against blacks the last 20 years alone. Not 200 years, not 400 years, since 2020. Discrimination against blacks, conservative report showed cost the U.S. economy $16 trillion. And if we just knock it off right now, you pick up $1 trillion a year. which, by the way, pays for all the stimulus from the COVID. I think that they're at 50% of this economy and below, which is 100 million people, poor whites, poor blacks, struggling women, all kind of underserved groups. There's 2 to 3% of untapped GDP, gross domestic product, waiting to be unleashed to grow the economy that benefits us all. Let me now pivot to my story and wrap this up before I bore you. So some of you may say, well, what is this guy the right to say all this? And I've told you a little bit about my background, my grandmother and my great-grandfather, so let me just cut to the chase. My grandfather was a sharecropper. My dad was a businessman. I'm an entrepreneur. My great-grandmother was a slave. My grandmother owned a shotgun shack. You guys know what a shotgun shack is? You do. You take a shotgun, open the front door, shoot it through the house, and don't hit anybody or anything because the house is hollow. It goes all the way to the back. There's no plumbing. It's what a lot of people in the South grew up in. My mother grew up in that. My grandmother owned a shotgun shack. My mother owned 7 homes. I owned 700. I'm the largest minority-controlled owner of single-family rental homes in America today. Here's my story. That was a $170 million deal I did in January. Sold the company and recapitalized it, and I'm now the largest shareholder, and I'm going to grow that company to $1 billion by January 2023 is my target. In fact, in December, I became the largest access to capital deal for a black business in the last decade when I wrote a $200 million credit facility with Barings. All this is online. You can check it out yourself. My story is that my mom and my dad, who loved each other, high school education from the South, built something great. They built their own home. They had an 8-unit apartment building. We owned a nursery business. We owned a gas station. They're little capitalists in South Central LA. Unfortunately, they didn't have financial literacy. So my dad believed the more money he made, the more money he made, he thought that built wealth. And in reality, the more money he made, the broker we got. He'd make $1 and spend $1.50. He actually confused cash flow with profit. And you make money during the day, you build wealth when you're asleep. Am I going too fast? Stocks, bonds, investment in real estate, home equity, education from Youngstown and other places. You build wealth in your sleep. Home ownership, as an example. There's 3 reasons why men fail, and women: arrogance, pride, and greed. My dad was not greedy, but he was full of pride. And he would not ask my mother for help, who was a financial savings genius. And we lost the gas station. We lost the 8-unit apartment building, which is now worth $6 million. We bought it for $18,000. Look at your average home value. You know, there's 3 things that have never gone down in American history: home ownership values, stock market values, and GDP. Now they do this, there's a recession, they dip, and guess what happens? It corrects above the line. Don't trust me, do your own research. For American history, it does this. Like right now, we're going to experience a dip. What do black people do? I'm picking on my race now. What do we do? Because we get afraid, because we don't know that we understand the markets. When it dips, what do? Sell. We sell on the dip. No, buy on the dip. It corrects above the line and leaves us behind. You have a $19,000 average value in the inner city. Buy it, rehab it. Get this memo out to every black person you know. Buy the hood. Buy it, rehab it, rent it, and hold it. Do not sell. Do that 3 times, you'll have generational wealth. We bought that apartment for $18,000. It is now worth $6 million. Nothing done with it. We lost it. You can make the payments with 2-unit rent from 2 units. We lived in the 3rd. We lost it all. When I was 7 years old, so my dad beat my mother because of domestic abuse, because of money. My brother wanted to go to college of his choice, and it would cost $4,000 to send him to college. It could have been Youngstown back. You guys were vibrant in this was the 60s. And my dad got to the bank first and spent the money on something, and it went away. And my mother said, "You can abuse me, but not my child. I'm out of here." My brother then joined the military to get an education. He went there for 4 years. He stayed there for 30 years. He married a Hawaiian. He lives in Hawaii. He has Hawaiian children. He now works as a contractor for the military. There's nothing wrong with this story except it wasn't by his direction. That $4,000 decision changed his whole life. Did you get that? I have wealth now. All wealth is freedom. That's all it is. It's freedom to do as you like. That's all it is. I have complete freedom to be here or not. My brother didn't have that choice. My mother leaves, looking for freedom. You remind me of my mother, by the way, that sense of self-esteem and spirit that you have, and I can see in your eyes. I can tell somebody told you they loved you growing up, not even knowing your story. I can see that. See, yes, somebody told her they loved her. Self-esteem. There's so much stuff I did not cover in this that I want to. Remind me of the 5 pillars of success before I stop. But I want to get this story out because I think it's important. So my mother moves with her girlfriend to save money to buy her first house. She's working at McDonnell Douglas Aircraft. The girlfriend has a boyfriend who I was told was my uncle. Make a long story short, he saved my life and I was swallowing my tongue. And I was choking. I honored this guy. I praised him. He was killed in front of me because he was selling drugs part-time. The guys in the neighborhood he was selling drugs for wanted to send a message. So in front of me, they ran him down in a truck on a bicycle. I'm 7 years old. That was also about money. I did that real fast so I didn't tear up. Normally, it catches me because I can see it. Sorry. We moved to my mother's house, 15502 in South Fraley in Compton, California, where she bought her home. My best friend was George. George was smarter than me, but did not have a mother like me that reminds me of you, who told me that she loved me every day of my life. There's a difference between being broke and being poor. Being broke is economic, but being poor is a disabling frame of mind, a depressed condition of your spirit. You must vow never, ever, ever to be poor again. If I don't like me, I'm not going to like you. If I don't feel good about me, I'm not going to feel good about you. If I don't respect me, don't expect me to respect you. If I don't love me, I don't have a clue how to love you. And here's the big one. If I don't have a purpose in my life, I'm going to make your life a living hell. Whatever goes around, comes around. So George didn't have what I had. He didn't have a mother who was broke but not poor. So he got killed with my next door neighbor, Tweet, selling drugs. Also about money. I'm 9 years old. Here's the pivot. My mother put me in these, I told this into the story with these young kids today, the students here at Youngstown. My mother put me in these, would make me these, she wanted me to have nice suits, but we didn't have the money, so she made them. And she put me in this crushed velvet, purple, velour 3-piece suit with a ruffled shirt and a big bow tie, and sent me to school in Compton. Yeah, cruelty. She wanted me to be a businessman. So she put me in that role. Guess what happened? I started walking like one, talking like one. I had a briefcase, nothing in it. I started selling Stacey Adams shoes by mail order, Omni jewelry by mail order, anything I can do by mail order, because I was selling, that's how I think why I communicate so well today, I was selling dreams from a very early age. I still didn't have financial literacy. Banker comes in my classroom, white man, 6'2", red tie, white shirt, blue suit, worked for Bank of America, first year of the Community Reinvestment Act, 1977, forced to come in the classroom in an underserved area to teach financial literacy. I know PNC Bank is here. They're going to do a major initiative that I can't talk about yet, but coming up, you'll watch that. I think you'll be impressed with that. It'll remind you what I'm telling you now. I go to my school, El Segundo Elementary School, Colin B. Kelly Elementary School is what it's called now. I go to my class. I'm 9 years old. Mayor comes to my class. We're teaching financial literacy. Home economics class doesn't exist anymore. We didn't want him to be there. He didn't want to be there. By the second or third session, we're like, you're not so bad for a white guy. He says, you're not so bad for kids. You remind me of my kids. We start having a relationship, start having constructive friction between each other, building a rapport. By the second or the third session, I'm wearing this suit. I raise my hand. Excuse me, sir, what do you do for a living? And how'd you get rich legally? I was completely serious. Nobody wore a suit in my neighborhood other than me and this detective, other than this banker. No one had a business card like he had. No one was on the 16th floor. I drove through Youngstown. It's 1- and 2-story buildings. I don't see skyscrapers. I mean, I see there's a few downtown, but other than the university. In my neighborhood, there were no skyscrapers unless it was the courthouse. He was on a salary. He come in the middle of the day. He had a beautiful car in the parking lot with a license plate and a tag, meaning he was legal. You guys are a hard crowd. This is some funny stuff. It's like meeting a Martian. What do you do for a living? How'd you get rich legally? He said, I'm a banker and I finance entrepreneurs. I said, I don't know what an entrepreneur is. No one's ever taught me that word in my entire life. But if it's legal and you're financing it, I'm going to be one. And that's who I am today. Now, the story between now and then, we don't have to go through because it's in my book, Up From Nothing. But the one story that I think is important was I left there and I saw businesses for the first time in my life everywhere. I even saw controversial statement. I saw the drug dealers in my neighborhood not as just problems. I saw them as untapped potential. Yes, it's illegal. Yes, it's immoral. Yes, it's a special place in hell reserved for those who sells death to their own community. But one thing they were not was dumb. They understood import, export, finance, marketing, wholesale, retail, customer service, security, territory, and logistics. But we wrote them off. And the gang organizers were frustrated union organizers. And if you don't think that this relates to white America, where do you think NASCAR came from? It was moonshine runners in the Appalachian Mountains who recognized they couldn't sell alcohol, but they drove really well. I'm not making this up. I saw the muffler shop as a business. I saw the nail shop as a business. I started seeing employers and ownership for the first time in my life. I recognized my mother was a homeowner for the first time in my life. There was a guy on the corner named Mr. Mac with Mac's Liquor Store, and I said, sir, I now recognize you as a business owner, and you're selling the wrong kind of candy, and we'll put you out of business. I'm 10. He tries to hire me to sell candy for him because he said I had gumption. I didn't know what gumption meant. But for the same reason, I tell rappers today, you got to own your publishing rights. Quote Quincy Jones, quote, if you don't own publishing rights or licensing rights or music rights, you're actually not in the music business, you're a temporary performer. Or you tell a basketball player, I want you to not just cash the check, I want you to own the stadium and the team and write the check. For the same reason, I didn't want to sell candy from his candy counter. I became a box boy to figure out where he was buying the candy and quit in 3 weeks. Went home, got $40 loan from my mother. Capitalist would not give me the money, said I had to pay it back. Went to Smart and Final on the side of the box, bought the same candy that he bought, put it in my house on the way to school, made $300 a week on a $40 investment, put him out of the candy business. What do you think happened to my self-esteem? My confidence, my belief, my self-worth, my sense of yes, I can. I take no for vitamins. Success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. I've been doing so much with so little for so long, I almost do anything with nothing. No one can stop me because I believe in myself. That's my capital. I was homeless for 6 months of my life when I was 18 years old. Again, you can read about all that. I'm just trying to tell you I am up from nothing. And today I founded the largest nonprofit financial inclusion organization, 200 offices, 46 states, $4 billion invested in underserved neighborhoods like this one. I already mentioned my credit scores, raising savings $1,200 in a year, lowering debt $2,600 in a year, and I already told you about the credit score, making people bankable at scale. And I've already told you about the real estate company, and I've only just begun. What can you do right here? Because everybody in this city is an asset, an untapped, unleveraged, unrehabilitated asset. Create a movement for massive entrepreneurship. Create a movement for massive financial literacy. It costs you nothing but your time. And see what happens to your hope. I'm going to end, but I want to come back to this. I always don't think of what economy you create here. It could be a digital economy, a technology economy, engineering economy. It could be a tourism spot. You can turn this place into whatever you want. It almost doesn't matter as long as you organize the economic energy. But here's the promise I will make you. You leave here and as a test, take a block, any block, and give it a 12-month period of time, and commit to raise the credit score on one block 100 points. And I guarantee you everything will change. Culture is not the most important thing in business. It's the only thing in business. Culture is the only thing in your home, on your block, in your neighborhood, in your city. It's everything. And there are three cultures in this country. There's a surviving mindset, a thriving mindset, and a winning mindset. And winners are builders. Guess which one am I? A surviving mindset has got too much money at the end of their money and they're depressed. Guess which credit score qualifies there? You can't, this stuff answers itself. You got to make a decision about what you want. But if you move credit scores 100 points, I guarantee you, your whole city will stabilize. Crime will go down. Murders will go away. Two-parent households will proliferate. Small businesses will get created. Entrepreneurs will be born. GDP will grow. And you'll have a software upgrade called Youngstown. You can reimagine anything. You're a city that's part of the American success story. You created a York. You need 10 of them, 100 of them. You need 1,000 of her. And it's all within our grasp. I am incredibly hopeful because at the end of the day, what you guys want is a viable plan for your life. And I just gave you one that I think is irrefutable, and I'm going to give you one last, and I'm done. Somebody in here is saying, there's not enough of us. Okay. I want you to go home and read the book, The Tipping Point. Malcolm Gladwell, University of Illinois study, proved at 5% role models, every community stabilizes. Not 80% role models, not 90% role models, not 50% role models, not 40% role models, just 5. The problem with Erie is it's probably 2%. So if all you see in your neighborhood are rap stars, athletes, and drug dealers as symbol of success, then why is anybody surprised that kids grow up wanting to be a rap star, an athlete, or a drug dealer? You're modeling what you So five pillars. This is a mathematical equation for success. These 5 things will guarantee you successful, and 3 of these things, the 3 groups I mentioned to you, don't have. As much education as you can shove down your throat. Financial literacy, understanding how the economy works, understanding how you create wealth. But it's financial literacy, essentially, the language of money. Family structure and resiliency. Am I going too fast? Self-esteem and confidence. Those 2 things are different. I mentioned earlier, if I don't like me, I'm not going to like you. If I don't feel good about me, I'm not going to feel good about you. If I don't love me, I'm not going to love you. I think half of this country is depressed. I think that 70% of black Americans are clinically undiagnosed depressed for good reason. But you cannot have a logical conversation with somebody if the hope measure is off. If the light is off over here on the right side of the brain, where creativity and hope and well-being and belief lives, they'll never get to the logic side, the left side of your brain. Confidence is competence. That's why you can have somebody next to you who has high competence, who has confidence but have low self-esteem. It's possible. You need self-esteem and confidence, how I comport myself and how I show up in the world. Number 5 is role models and environment. So basically what that means is if I hang around 9 broke people, I'm going to be the 10th. If you have those 5 things, you'll be successful. So let me tell you a group that had it, that there was an attempted extermination of them as a race. My Jewish brothers and sisters. It was called the Holocaust. There was 18 million of them. Hitler tried to murdered 6 million of them plus. That's a recorded number. I think it was more. 12 million were left. They grew that from 12 million to 15 million. Today, 7.5 million Jews are in America. The other 7.5 million Jews are around the world. But today, Jews are 2% of our population and the wealthiest religious group in America, accounting for 25% of all billionaires in wealth in the richest economy on the planet. They survived before the Holocaust and intact after the Holocaust because they had those 5 things. Blacks, African Americans, poor whites, and Native American Indians were denied education, understanding the math, family structure and resiliency. This is really African American. Self-esteem and confidence, of course, that was in the tank. And our role models suck. Sorry, that was French. And that's why you're not succeeding. As a group, there are exceptions to every rule. You take that and apply it to wherever you want. I guarantee you it will work every time. Yes, ma'am.
I'll start thinking.
Okay. Aren't you guys tired of me yet?
No. Okay. Evening. My name is Jayetta Jackson, and I am a distinguished professor and senior lecturer in the Department of Communication Studies. Our Q&A tonight will be handled by a communication student, Giacomo Capabianca. Giacomo Capabianca is studying for his master's degree in professional communication and is also a teaching assistant in the communications department. Giacomo?
Thank you for being in Youngstown tonight.
My honor.
My first question is, what are the 3 kinds of leaders we need, and what is the #1 quality you look for in leaders?
Government, community, and the private sector. Somebody who builds, who's more PhD than PhD. You need the PhD, you need the intellect, but you need somebody who sees a problem, has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And oftentimes I find I get into discussions with people who don't have a solution, but they want to criticize whatever, capitalism, and what I tell people is capitalism and democracy are horrible systems except for every other system. Like, there is no perfect. and people want to criticize America, and I'm like, okay, I've been to 100 countries. Like, I get America is really screwed up. I get it. Here's a plane ticket. Sell all your stuff. Where would you like to go? No one ever leaves. So we have a lot of people today whose business plans, so-called leaders, are fear-based. They're preying on our insecurities. They're manipulating our fears and our depression. But the Bible says where there is no vision, people perish. And what we're missing are leaders with a vision who bring all of us forward. You know, we've been a nation of immigrants. The only people who weren't immigrants here were like Native American Indians. Am I talking to myself? If you're Polish, if you're white today, if you go back and she said she didn't understand it. If you're white today and you go back, really you're Polish or you're Irish or you're British or you're German or you were some European immigrant who immigrated, your grandparents, great-grandparents came through Ellis Island or wherever, and you mainstream because you can sort of flex with everybody else because you're Caucasian, so now you're just white. Well, that is everybody's experience in America, but now we seem to have a problem with immigrants who look different. And we should really be asking you, do you contribute? Are you an immigrant who can contribute? It's the wrong question, right? And so everything else is just an insecurity. And so we need leaders who are leading us to be better together, not insecure and apart. And so I sort of answered the question in a roundabout way. We need leaders with a vision who can bring us together from the private sector, from government and community. And I will say this also, people don't know this, but it was the private sector that integrated the South in the 1960s. It wasn't the government. It was the governor and the mayor standing in the hallway and saying, over my dead body, am I going to immigrate this school? It was JCPenney's owner, JCPenney, Woolworths, if you remember those soda shops that were on the corner, back in those days, the bus companies were privately owned, but they didn't have any customers because Dr. King had shut down the economy because he'd protest. He shut down the economy, and 2/3 of the customers were black, even though they were told to go to the back of the bus. And the economy started to hurt the private sector owners, and Andrew Young, my mentor, would go meet with 100 business leaders after 6 weeks of protesting and quietly cut a deal to get the whites-only signs down. And that integrated the South. And the business leaders would then go to the mayor and tell him to knock it off. It's bad for business. Racism was bad for business. Quick aside, do you know, of course you know, the drive-through windows at wherever it is you go to, McDonald's, someone pick up McDonald's, Burger King, wherever store you go to, these drive-through windows, you know where that came from? It came from the American South, because blacks would go to the side window or the back window to pick up their meal from the restaurant. You couldn't go to the front, so the restaurant would install a window on the back or on the side just for blacks. Every drive-through window in the world comes from slavery. I'm sorry, it comes from the Jim Crow era. Of course, we didn't get a patent on that.
Thank you.
You gotta laugh at this stuff, otherwise you go crazy.
Do you think the American dream is at risk, and how do we save it?
Yes, I think it's at risk because we're navel-gazing, because we're picking at each other, because as I said earlier, everybody wants to be an American but Americans. We're experts at what we're against and not what we're for. We want to figure out, how do I cut up a poverty pie versus creating more empowerment or growth pie. We want to figure out how to make you lose versus how to make us all win. It's just ridiculous. We're rearranging the deck chairs in the Titanic. The ship is sinking and we're picking drapes. I mean, we really just need to knock it off. It drives me out of my cotton picking mind. And none of this stuff that people are selling works. It doesn't build anything. I'm not making a moral statement. I'm not making an ethical statement. I'm making a common sense statement. Like, the math is on my side. Like, if we just do the right thing and treat people decently, it actually makes economic sense. It's almost like God in the Bible is the greatest business plan on the planet. Treat others as you want to be. I mean, it's not complicated. And so, is it at risk? Yes. Is it at risk? Again, we don't have time for this, and I want to get you home. We're still in civil war. We don't have time for this. We really don't. I don't want to go down another rabbit hole. But I'm just give you a brain teaser here. After the apartheid happened in South Africa, they had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. You had to show up and say, I did wrong, I'm so sorry, and then you publicly acknowledge that was wrong, you won't do it again, and then you were sort of let off. In Rwanda, you had the genocide. You had Hutu and Tutsi. There was the Gacaca courts. You had to show up. I'm sorry, I sliced this person's arm off. I murdered this person. I did this, I did that. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Okay, your sins have been forgiven. Never do that again. You're on record. Go away. By the way, no more Hutu, no more Tutsi. We're all Rwandese. You go to Kigali now, downtown in Rwanda, safest city in Africa. Rwanda has the most progressive constitution in the world. 65% of all elected officials are women today. South Africa's problem is not race anymore, it's poverty. They've got over the race issue. The issue is just not enough money to go around. It's economics. Civil war happened in this country. Lincoln was exhausted. He didn't want to have a commission. He didn't want to have a trial. He just wanted to go, look, just go home, take your gun and your horse, be a farmer. And they said, no, this is not over. And they attempted assassination of him and the entire government literally the next month, and they actually murdered him. That was a coup. And now we still are arguing over Confederate flags and Confederate monuments because we never decided that it was one country. Knock it off. Why are we obsessed with guns? We have more guns than people, more than any other country. To me, it's very simple. There was a law in 1860s. If you were white and you were a plantation owner, you must take your gun to church. Because the fear was, if blacks were ever going to uprise, this was during slavery, it would happen on the one day they were off. So after slavery, fear's not rational. After slavery, folks said, if they do to us what we did to them, we're going to need some guns. Under our bed, back then in the wagon, at church, everywhere you can grab it, you need a gun. What are we doing today? At school, in the pickup truck, under the bed. I mean, fear is not rational. But once this stuff gets in your bones, it becomes part of your culture. We need to knock it off. We never healed as a country. This is my next book, by the way, The Bridging of an Unhealed America. Anyway, I love you all. Let's get me out of here before I bore you. Is that it? So I'm told, is that the last question?
Yes, that's the last question.
Is it the last question or you just cut me a break?
We just cut you a break.
Okay. Have you guys enjoyed this tonight? Yeah. The most important thing I want you to hear, with every bone in my body, every fiber of my soul, I love you. I love each and every one of you. We are better together. You die twice. You die physically. You die the last time somebody mentions your name. Nobody cares how many cars you have, how many square foot your home is, what country club you're a member of. Nobody cares. It won't last. The only thing that matters is what you do for somebody else. The only way somebody's going to continue to mention your name is if you help somebody else. And don't tell me you don't want a legacy. It's a lie. Everybody wants to be remembered. Everybody wants a legacy. Everybody wants to know their life mattered. It's not just about what you get. It's about what you give. And you have got, just like the Yorks, and they keep this promise, you've got a lot to give. I'm done.
Let's give a round of applause. We'd like to thank once again John Hope Bryant. We want to thank again Gwen and Tom Watson and all the Thomas family and their generosity and their belief in Youngstown and YSU keeps these lectures going. So thank you again and have a wonderful night.
I would love to hear you. You're a fantastic human being. Were you scared when I jumped off the stage?
I'm like, of course, okay.